Hello everyone, my name is Angel Araiza, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about what I learned in the book of Colossians. I read it over and over again, and I looked for all the things about Jesus. Here it goes. This is the main theme of what I'm going to be talking about. Jesus is in control of this world. And this is the passage that I used to kind of encapsulate my whole study of the Bible, of the book of Colossians. Here it is. It's Colossians 1:15 through 17. I have it written down here, so I'm going to read it off to you. He is the image of the invisible God, Jesus, the firstborn over all creation. For everything was created by him, in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible. Whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and by him all things hold together. So that's the passage. And what I would like to do to kind of break it down is just go and take it bit by bit to walk through the passage as a whole, I guess. So the first section, verse 15. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. That first bit, he is the image of the invisible God. This is talking about the reality of God is found in Christ. Christ may be, right now, like invisible, or maybe God may be invisible, but he is not unknowable. Because of Jesus, we get to see what God is like by seeing Jesus's teachings, his life, and also his resurrection. We can learn what God is like through the Gospels. And then secondly, the firstborn over all creation. So a lot of people have taken this bit and taken it out of context to say that, there he is. Jesus is created. But according to this theologian here, let me pull up the quote. Ernest D. Martin. According to Ernest D. Martin, the theologian who wrote this commentary, biblical usage of firstborn indicates a predominant emphasis on being first in rank and honor. Or in other words, that word firstborn means that Jesus has rank and honor above all creation. Kind of like the older brother has like the most prestige normally. That's what it's like. But Jesus has the most prestige over everything and it makes sense with the next verse, and I'll read it off to you here. For everything was created by him in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. This further defines the relationship between Christ and all things. This whole idea that Christ created everything on earth, the visible and the invisible. And this is a pretty amazing verse, just talking about that Jesus created everything on earth. It makes sense why in the Gospels Jesus is able to change the properties of the water as he walks on it, or the wind and the waves obey him, just the word of his voice. If he was the creator of everything, that would make sense that he'd be able to do that. And then nextly, Jesus is in control of the power structures of this world. So he's in control of governments, he's in control of companies, of nations, and this is pretty awesome. And I know you might be thinking, well, Angel, there's a bunch of evil forces that happen in there, and it's gross and icky, and government can get nasty, and power structures, and much evil has been done through them. Yes, that is true. But according to Colossians 2:15, I'll read it off for you. Christ has stripped them of their power through his death. So yes, we live in a broken world right now, but through his death, Christ has stomped out that snake, and he will come back to wipe every tear. Also, last bit of that verse, all things have been created through him and for him. That first bit, all things have been created through him, this is talking about how everything in the world was created through Christ. He was the direct means of creation. It was by his hand. Also, when it said everything is for Jesus, this is saying that the goal of the universe is to find its fulfillment in Christ. The whole universe will find its fulfillment in Christ. And then lastly, verse 17, he is before all things, and by him all things hold together. Before all things, this is referring to time and importance. Just like before all things refers to priority and time and importance. So we could talk about John 1, where it talks about how Christ was before all things. Before all things was Christ. So he's before everything in that sense, but also in sense of priority or importance. He's more important than everyone. Kind of like the firstborn bit we were talking about earlier. And then lastly, by him all things hold together. This refers to Christ being the sustainer of our world. Everything in this world is sustained by Christ. It's not like it's saying that Christ created the world and then that's it, it does its own thing, but that he actively holds it in his hands. There is brokenness in our world right now, but we are in his hands and we can put our trust in him. Just how Christ refers to the birds putting their trust in God, we can put our trust in God as well. We put our trust in Jesus. It kind of reminds me of a spring, how the spring is only held in tension when you compress it and you hold it like that. It's going to take constant effort in order to keep it compressed. In that sense, it's like Jesus is constantly holding us, and we could see that effort around us. He's actively holding our universe together, or kind of like gravity. These huge, giant planets are being held together by an invisible but orderly force. These stars and planets are rotating around each other by something we can't see, but they're held together. Or the atoms, the tiniest things that we're able to see. The electrons that are flying around the protons and neutrons, they're held together by this invisible force. Just like that, Christ is holding on to us. So in summary, out of everything, my main point is that Jesus is in control of the world. And what this looks like practically is that we can put our trust in Jesus. When everything starts to get scary in our life, when we're nervous about what's going to happen in the future, we can put our trust in Jesus. He's in control of the world. He's actively holding us right now. And he is where we can find fulfillment. This is what our heart longs for. A practical thing would be to be constantly rooted in Jesus, would be to just have the Gospels played throughout. Add it to your Spotify playlist and your liked songs. There's some awesome things. Just be soaking in the Gospels and focused in on them. And then I'll close you off with a prayer. I guess I'll leave it off with this. We can put our trust in him.